Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second in our year-long series of masterclass webinars celebrating and supporting the International Year of Quantum. This time with our webinar, Flipped Learning, How to Deliver Black Opal to Any Kind of Classroom. This is the second in our year-long series of webinar classes that we plan throughout the year. And to celebrate the International Year of Quantum, which is a global initiative that aims to raise public awareness of the importance and impact of quantum science and its applications in all aspects of life, and to help anyone, anywhere learn more about quantum. So yeah, hi, I'm Mick Conroy. I'm Staff Product Manager at Q-CTRL, and I look after Black Opal, our quantum edtech product that you're going to find out about a lot more about today. I've been with Q-CTRL for about 5 years, where I've been exclusively focused on making quantum computing more engaging and accessible to everyone. I'm not a quantum physicist. My background is in product management and in science and technology, having previously worked on STEM projects at the CSIRO, Australia's National Science Agency, and have also worked as a journalist for Wired magazine. And I'm here with my colleague, Michael Hush. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Hush, so I'm the chief scientist at Q-CTRL. Been with the company basically since we started 7 years ago, and we've been working on making quantum technology useful, whether it's our quantum computing technology, where we're boosting the performance of quantum computers available today, or in our quantum sensing space, where we're providing solutions to GPS-denied navigation. I've been really pushing the technical work at Q-CTRL. But I've also been supporting this real need to teach people about what quantum technology is and what a quantum computer is and how it works. And this relates to some of my background that I had before I started at Q-CTRL. I was an academic and a lecturer at 2 universities. I did a lot of work lecturing at UNSW Canberra, where I taught a variety of classes in computer science, engineering, and physics, and also a variety of tutorials at the Australian National University, where I did my PhD. So me and Mick have been talking recently, and I just thought that I wanted to join one of these webinars and talk a bit about all these great opportunities that I see for Black Opal in the classroom. And so today, let's talk through that, Mick. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So let's start off a bit with Q-CTRL, where we both work. So a little bit about us. So Q-CTRL is a quantum technology company. We've been around since 2017. We now have employees throughout Australia, US, Europe, and the UK. And we make AI-powered quantum infrastructure software to make quantum useful. We have a variety of products that help us to do that. We have Fire Opal, which is for quantum application developers looking to boost performance on today's cloud access quantum computers. We have Boulder Opal, a product for professional teams working directly with quantum hardware. We have Ironstone Opal, our newest product, which is quantum navigation technology that works in situations where GPS is not available and outperforming conventional GPS alternatives by up to 50 times. And we have Black Opal, which is why we are here. Black Opal is our quantum edtech platform, and it's the product that I'm responsible for. Black Opal enables absolutely anyone to learn quantum computing in a really practical, visual, interactive, engaging way with no prerequisites whatsoever. Our award-winning products are used by tens of thousands of users worldwide, and just this week, we won the EdTech Breakthrough Award for the 2nd year in a row for Workforce Development Solution of the Year, something that we're really proud of. So let's get started with today's webinar, Flipped Learning, How to Deliver Black Opal to Any Kind of Classroom. So today we're going to tell you, firstly, why you should care about teaching or learning about quantum computing right now. Then we'll provide a brief overview of flipped learning, and then we'll go deep into a demo of Black Opal to demonstrate how to deliver a quantum computing course with Black Opal in a flipped classroom environment, including how to realize the benefits of that approach while minimizing the effort that can typically take. And we'll finish off with a couple of examples. And we will be having a Q&A at the end of the webinar. So be sure to enter your questions as we go through using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. And with that, I'll hand over to Michael to lay out the case for why the time is now to learn and to teach quantum computing.
Yeah, so quantum computing is been a concept which has existed since the 90s, but we've seen a really massive increase in its both the ability to make high performant quantum computers and also a large number of great venture capital companies and big private investment from companies like Google and IBM in how to make these quantum computers both real, accessible, and available to everyone today. And that really has happened in the last 10 years where we're seeing a real surge in the technology's ability to operate and deliver real solutions. So what drove this to begin with? It's really been initially this discovery that a quantum computer can solve certain problems which would be very, very difficult in our classical computers, the computers we use today. An example of this is in drug discovery. So if we're trying to find better drugs to solve challenges that we're having with diseases, etc., fundamentally, drugs are based on chemistry, and chemistry obeys quantum mechanics. So quantum computers have this intrinsic advantage on being able to solve problems which are in the quantum world because they're made of quantum material. And that advantage was seen quite early on as a potential big win for how a quantum computer could solve a problem that was today very, very, very hard. The other component that's really driven this investment in quantum computers and this drive to get them working is that the computers we have today are hitting their limit. We've made transistors smaller and smaller and smaller, but the transistors today, the size and shape of certain components, just can't get any smaller anymore. We really hit that physical limit on the size of certain pieces in those chips, and the complexity of these chips has really gone up. So it's pushed the need for certain problems, is there ways in which we could use a different type of compute to solve them and take some of that compute requirement off that main computer as it may start to hit limits soon. So those driving forces have really resulted in new ideas of like where we think quantum computers can also provide an advantage. And the other two kind of topics which I see as a real big opportunity for quantum computers and their application is what I like to call big problem, not big data. So an example of this is if you're trying to optimize a transport network, say you've got a train system or you're designing your roads, then there's a huge space of possibilities. So every time a train arrives or leaves, there are many, many different combinations of the position of your trains or the times and their schedules. That is a massive problem space. And what we've seen is that quantum computers have the potential to solve these challenging optimization problems with these big possibilities and find the ones which are the best, the optimal ones in the sense of either reducing the amount of costs, like the amount of fuel use in your on a transport network, or making sure that people get from A to B quicker. So quantum computers have a potential to solve those problems faster and more efficiently than is possible on a regular computer. And similar reasoning applies to these ideas of using quantum computers for optimizing financial portfolios. So again, that big problem space and finding one of the futures which we think is most likely. Finally, one of the biggest drivers today is just AI. So AI has become so compute hungry that we are already immediately seeing the need for more and more compute to deliver the ambition of both the AI companies and also the need of the customers to use these technology to solve day-to-day problems. But the challenge is the compute needs to keep up. And there are a variety of like subroutines and bits and pieces in AI, which we think that quantum computers are a lot better at. So all of these applications have driven the need to get quantum computers working and available today. So next slide, Mick, but like, so where are we at? So I've been working in the commercial space for quantum computing for 7 years now, and lecturing on quantum stuff for a while before that. We've really achieved a lot in that period. So compared to when I started and the computers that were available online, like from IBM at the very, very start, had 5 qubits. They were very small. They were almost toys. And what they could solve was basically the same thing that an undergrad student could solve on their laptop. They were a tool for learning, and it was amazing that they were available, but they just weren't at the scale that was required to solve the challenges that we're looking at. So since then, things have massively increased in scale. So IBM in particular has hundreds of qubits available. Other companies do as well. And we have a very clear pathway now up to 100,000 qubits. So it's really not so much the number of qubits that's the challenge, that we've really got enough qubits, let's say, on devices. What's the biggest challenge now is the quality, the performance of those qubits, and making sure that all of those qubits are connected and talking in the way that's required to process information and solve problems. Qubits here being the way we encode quantum information, where it's not just a 1 or a 0 in a regular bit in a computer, it's some combination of both in a qubit. So what's really impressive today is that technology that had those thousands of qubits, the quality is so high now that the simulations that we're able to do are they're so difficult that classical computers can barely compete. And even when you try and get a regular classical computer to solve the same problems that a quantum computer is doing, you need the world's experts to configure, simulate that classical system. We really are at that edge where a quantum computer is competing with the smartest person with the best classical computer available for specific problems. But so that is a really important turning point which we've achieved right now. But to take that to the next level, the problems that quantum computer is solving need to also be commercially useful. And that's this drive towards quantum advantage. So what we've been doing at Q-CTRL is we've pushed these quantum computers to perform the biggest and most correct optimization of logistics problems that anyone else in the world has done. And we've been doing this with a variety of different partners. So we see a real opportunity where quantum computers in 2 to 4 years will be operating at the quality required to actually test and be competitive with the best possible classical computer at solving that same optimization problem. So at that point, there are certain optimization problems where there are so many possibilities, there's so many trains, let's say, in your network, that it can take actually up to a day for a classical computer to get you a not even optimal, but decent solution, so approximate solution. And in 2 to 4 years, that's when we're expecting quantum computers to be of the quality and size where they will be able to solve problems of that magnitude. So we've been considering and looking at this problem with a variety of different partners, whether it's Network Rail from the UK, the Australian Army, Transport for New South Wales, and on broader logistics problems with Airbus and the BMW Group. And we continue to really see consistent, clear improvements in the quality and performance of quantum computers, resulting in a timeline where I am getting more and more confident every year that this advantage that we're expected to see from a quantum computer on these problems is nearer than ever.
Thanks, Michael. And so, yeah, that's the state of quantum, and all of that on the ground progress is the reason that firms such as McKinsey here forecast that quantum computing will be a 700 billion opportunity by 2030, which isn't too far away. And while the industry is forecast to grow, as we see here, the fact remains that there is also a forecast skills shortage with just one qualified candidate for every 3 quantum job openings. So the opportunity is there for us, those of us working within education or education adjacent fields, to offer students the opportunity to gain the skills necessary to fill that gap and become part of the quantum workforce, not just in the future, but the opportunities that already exist today. And Black Opal offers a fantastic way to prepare to start to fill that gap, to enable anyone to go from zero understanding to programming real quantum computers. And flipped learning is a great way to deliver Black Opal. Not the only way, of course, but a methodology that can map really well to Black Opal's content and feature set. So let's start with a brief definition of flipped learning. And while there is no one model, the core idea is to flip the common instructional approach. So Teacher-created videos, interactive lessons, instruction that used to occur in class is now accessed at home or outside of class in advance of class. And so class becomes a place to instead work through problems, advance concepts, and engage in really collaborative learning. So really, I think it boils down to three pillars here. We have the self-driven learning, and that's where students engage with instructional content outside of class. It means students have increased autonomy, they're more actively involved in and have more responsibility for their own learning and their own progress, and the mastery of that instructional content as well. In class, then actively, activities aim to deepen that understanding with a real focus on collaboration and interaction and open-ended problem solving that builds on what was done outside of class. So yeah, as I say, collaborative projects, discussion, which can be guided by the educator, open-ended problem solving. That's really the focus. And then I think the third pillar is that flipped learning has to be made easy. Easy, very perhaps a little bit flippant there, of course, but flipped learning does demand a lot from educators in terms of facilitation. So having resources that are ready to go and can be customized to how you want to teach and tailored for your students is really important. So tools that reduce admin to zero, or especially in terms of providing access and tracking student progress, also equally important. So that's the broad definition of flipped learning. But Michael, what's been your experience of using it in practice? Maybe you can add to my definition there.
Yeah, so I think flipped learning is a great way to first learn about a different paradigm, which can open your mind a bit and move you out of the old school passive lecturing approach. But I think what was important to me is to understand what part of the flipped learning ideas have really, really good evidence behind them as well. So as a scientist, I'm also always looking for the actual the evidence based on scientific investigation. So the key thing to really take home about flipped learning is that it increases the amount of what we call like active learning. And there's good evidence to show that when students are doing active learning, which that means taking multiple choice questions in a classroom, for instance, during a lecture where each person individually has to think and actually make a decision, individual projects they're working on with open-ended sort of problems or problem sets, group workshops where they're helping each other and solving problems together, or tutorials, classic tutorials where they're working through problems and everyone's active in that learning process. It's been shown that the more active learning you do results in better results. And like explicitly, that's the number of less students will fail during an exam if you do more active learning in your classroom compared to passive learning, like passive lecturing, where a lecturer is just out the front and is teach by telling, just telling them, giving them instruction, but not expecting students to then do anything in that classroom. So that's the key thing to take home from the flipped learning approach is the increase in your active learning. And then I'll talk through some things with Vic as we go through about the parts which I've found easier to implement in some of the classrooms that I've worked with in the past, where I've taken some flipped learning philosophy and applied it. And there's opportunities where we can see Black Opal contributing to that.
Exactly. So as Michael said, I think what we'll do now then is we're going to walk through the Black Opal product itself and show how it can be used to deliver a quantum computing fundamentals course with the flipped learning methodology. So this is Black Opal, and I think we'll sort of focus in on some of those key aspects one at a time and show how it maps to Black Opal. So first of all, there's the first component of flipped learning there, which is the self-driven side, engaging with that instructional content. That's where we see that increased student autonomy, students taking responsibility for their own learning and progress and actively engaging with the content and aiming for intuition and strong understanding of the material. So if we focus first on that, responsibility for learning and for progress. So here within Black Opal here, you can see our 10 skills here. And we call them skills because we're really trying to emphasize the interactive and practical nature of each of these modules. You can think of them as modules. And there's 10 of these, ranging from beginner through to intermediate, all the way through to advanced. And there's a significant amount of material here. We're looking at more than 450 interactive activities spread out across these 10 skills. And within each of these skills, they're sort of laid out in this really clear pathway. So you can see this pathway running through, and all the resources that a student is going to need to complete this is all in the one place. And the way forward is really clear. You can see that pathway, and that clarity enables, I guess, autonomy in learning. The way to move forward, the way to make progress is really clear. You move through each of these topics, these larger sort of squares here, completing the activities, which are these ticks, because I've completed them. And each of these activities only takes a minute or two, and it makes it easy to continue working, making progress in small increments and working your way ultimately to the end of the skill. So, the ability to make progress in a self-driven kind of way, we've really tried to assist the student with that. But the second aspect, and perhaps one of the most important aspects, is actively engaging with the content. And I think the variety of activities available in Black Opal makes that a lot easier than it might otherwise be. So we really encourage a student to engage with the material. And that's something that we've striven really hard for in Black Opal. You can see that in this core unit of Black Opal, the activities, which you can see here. They're really visual, really accessible, they're really engaging, and they're really hands-on. So for example, here with this qubits activity, you can see we've asked them to learn something on the left here, and then immediately there's an interactive on the right where you can start to play around with something. We've got a 3D block sphere here, and we're encouraging this interactive, this engagement. And for example, if you get something incorrect, give you a little bit of a hint, have another go until you get it right, and you get some encouragement.
And I think the other great part is there's great animations as well, right? There's a lot of visual ways of engaging with the material in a way that you would not normally have with a textbook or another way of lecturing. I just wanted to say in this particular component of the flipped learning part, so flipped learning, I think the most controversial part, definitely the part which has been the hardest when I've worked with the paradigm, is the concept of getting the students to go and take the content and do it at home on their own. So when you're trying to completely flip that classroom, where you're moving all of the learning of the self-driven learning outside of the classroom, and then the classroom is entirely focused on problem solving and tutorials, that can be really, really hard to achieve. And that particular element is the part which is like a little bit more ephemeral when it comes to the evidence of how effective that is, largely because it's hard to get students to learn outside of the classroom, right? So I just like, one of the great things about Black Opal is it's actually very engaging. So I really think it's your best chance, if you are going to have a chance of getting students to work on something outside of the classroom, is with Black Opal, where they'll be learning things in these bite-sized pieces. They'll be doing exercises as they go through, and it really kind of drives and continues that motivation to keep learning. But of course, if you don't want to completely flip, and that's what I did, I never completely flipped. I always used my lecturing slots. I used the first 30 minutes or so to do a lecture. You can also just directly use the product in your lectures. So what I would do is, but I've adopt this, as I'd probably still do a conventional part of my initial lecture, but I would use these individual problems as I'm going through and get the students to solve them in real time in the classroom. And so that's a way of just boosting your active learning in the class, leveraging a whole bunch of content which is ready to go out of the box. You don't have to program anything to do anything. And you can complement your lecturing that you're already used to. And sometimes that's also important for the students who can be more used to going to lectures. So it can kind of be a good way to make them meet flip learning halfway.
Yeah, exactly. And that sort of takes us to the other side, I guess, which is, in class, in the lecture theatre, for flipped learning, collaboration and open-ended problem solving is really key. Working through problems, real use cases. And so whilst we've got the activities side of things, working through the course within Black Opal, We also have this project area where, for example, projects are this open-ended series of tasks where essentially we draw from everything that they might have learned across the more than 450 activities in Black Opal. And they're sort of the perfect capstone challenge to meet the requirements of an educational curriculum where you might want to have a project in there. And whilst they look, quite similar to the activities I was just showing you, projects themselves are actually, they feature multiple solutions. And so they actually have to explore and discuss, potentially work together to find solutions to what is essentially modeled on a real world problem where you've got a 4-qubit quantum computer with some constraints. And there are different solutions. Some solutions are more effective than others. And there is a lot less guidance. In fact, there's very little guidance in these projects. So you really have to learn, explore, maybe refer back to things that you previously learned, ultimately working towards finding the best possible solution to this series of tasks within this project. And
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, go, Michael.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, I find this particular part, I think, is perfect for like a tutorial setting. And the nice thing about it, as you're saying, Mick, because they're open-ended, they've got a lot of problem solving to do with the students. So one of the most important things I've found when you're trying to teach a class is to try to leverage and get the other students to get them to teach each other a bit. Because you're always, no matter how you teach, you're always going to have those students who just either love the content or are particularly switched on, and they're going to get ahead of the class. And they can easily get ahead with Black Opal where they can just complete content beforehand. So your tutorials are your real opportunity to take those students who have kind of got a bit more advanced and give them an opportunity to teach their peers what they've learned, and that will both help them reinforce the things that they've learned while they've been studying, but also get other students in your class ahead. And I think these projects, the fact that they're both they're automatically they change as well. So it's not just one problem; you can automatically get them to change. They're a great way of really testing that students understand the concepts completely, and they also have a lot of opportunity to talk through the pieces and put the pieces together so that they understand how they're getting from A to B.
Yeah, exactly. Because these projects, they're automatically graded. So when the students submit this, we'll automatically grade it based on the quality of the answers that they've given, but also we provide that grading rubric to teachers. So as Michael was saying there, you can then take that opportunity to discuss those problems with students later in a classroom setting. So the third pillar here is, around making things easy and having some resources that are, easy to deploy and ready to go. Because as we say, flipped learning demands a lot from educators in terms of facilitation. And so having these resources ready to go is really important. And tools that can tailor the content for your students is also really important. So one of these features that we have in here is called assignments. And what it lets you do is customize the skills for your students. You can essentially create a pathway through the course to meet the goals of different cohorts and to customize Black Opal for how you want to teach. So for example, choosing the particular modules that you want your students to focus on, assigning those to students, optionally, setting a due date, for example, and then they can then focus on the things that you would like them to focus on. You can create as many of these assignments as you like to match with how you want to deliver the course and really tailor that content. It also helps with tracking progress. So you can then see how many students are in progress, where they're up to, who's finished, and get even more detailed reports for students that might need it as well. So it's not just this customization ability that we have as well. We also have exams that are ready to go out of the box for you to use as you see fit. So these are multiple choice. They cover everything that they might have covered in the course. And it's something that teachers can set to be as formal or informal as you like. So they're automatically graded as well. And they're also something where we will provide you with the answers. So again, it's a great way for students to understand where they're at. It's also a great way for you to then come back in class, discuss the answers, and tailor support activities around the exam as well.
Yeah, I would just say like the thing to remember is you can use this how you want as well. So I know what I would do in this for if I was running a class, I personally would still definitely write my final exam myself. I'd write those problems, I'd set that all up. I would personally use this as like a training tool for students. So I'd make it available to them at the end of the course, the lecturing and the tutorials, and that would be a tool for them to use on their own to reinforce their skills. But the key thing I'm getting at here is that there's nothing about the product that binds you. You can use it like a regular textbook. You can record your own lectures beforehand and use Black Opal in your videos. You can do your own tutorials to complement the content in here as well. The key thing is we've got a whole bunch of options just available to you to increase that active learning and get that ratio up so students are more engaged without you having to do additional heavy lifting. So you can focus on adding the components to your course yourself, which you think provide the most value.
Exactly. So there's more than 450 activities, as I said, ready to go as resources out of the box. So, there's no time-consuming resource creation required. And I think the other thing is the actual teaching resources. Despite this being quantum computing, this doesn't require any sort of unattainable tech or resources. Really, all you need to access Black Opal is a modern web browser. It works on desktop, on tablet, on mobile as well. And lastly, there's no need for quantum expertise. So Black Opal itself has no prerequisites. Neither teachers nor students need to be quantum experts to make use of it. And plus there is support available within the app for when students or teachers get stuck as well. So maybe some examples then. So I want to talk about a couple of clients that we have that have made use of Black Opal in this flipped learning or flipped learning adjacent sort of fashion. So the first one I want to talk about is the New South Wales Department of Education here in Australia. They deployed it to 50 students at high school level across multiple schools, and the students then made progress in Black Opal on their own time. The science teachers across the different schools had also completed Black Opal ahead of time, so they could facilitate and encourage the students and support as necessary, and discuss and complete some of the activities together in class as well. And they had no other quantum expertise before this. Despite that, they had an 83% completion rate for students, which is really good. Then we have the Tamil Nadu Skills Development Corporation. So they used a flipped classroom model for 3,000 students across 70 different campuses throughout Tamil Nadu, which is a state in India. Similarly, no prior quantum expertise. We had the faculty complete Black Opal, so that's about 70 different faculty members, complete Black Opal first in a 1 week sort of intensive course so that they could then facilitate the students that would then complete Black Opal themselves 1 week at a time over 12 weeks. And that included sort of in-class discussion and completion of the projects and the exams as well. And they had a 74% pass rate, which again is really good. And lastly, wanted to touch on the University of Hull. They are not using flipped learning. It's much closer to a hybrid model, but I wanted just to mention it here because you don't need to be fully committed to a flipped learning model for Black Opal to still be something that works really well in an educational environment. So with University of Hull, they have a brilliant quantum mechanics university level course and expert faculty already. And Black Opal here was deployed alongside their in-class activities for them to complete outside of class. So to reinforce and complement what was already being taught in the course. And here they had 85% of students report that Black Opal improved their overall learning outcomes when used alongside the university syllabus. So we actually have the case study for this on our website, those that are interested in learning a bit more about that one.
Yeah, and I would just say when I've been thinking about what I would do if I would bring it to a classroom, what I particularly like is that it really is ready to go out of the box for full flip. So you can just straight out of the gates set all your content at home, use the app to monitor who has and hasn't completed that content, and then bring that into the tutorial space. I still would be tempted, I think, myself to do some lecturing just to make sure, because I always get nervous about whether the students are actually doing work at home. So going around the classroom and just checking what they're up to was always something that I found was really, really useful to get students moving, let's say, and really engaged. But what is great about this is that you can just experiment with flipped learning and see how it works for you without having to just do all of that work beforehand. Because I think that's also the hardest part, is that if you want to even try and do an experiment with flipped learning normally, it's such a huge amount of work. You don't want to be putting that work in for something that may or may not work out in the end. So Black Opal gives you a great opportunity to get straight into it and boost that active learning.
Yeah, thanks for the segue. So yeah, I think so to summarize here, I think I hope we've demonstrated that Black Opal is a really good turnkey solution for flipped learning. So if it's a delivery method that you're interested in for your institution, Black Opal supports these key tenets really well. So the self-driven instruction component, we have these more than 450 activities, the variety, the interactivity, and that keen sense of purpose that encourages the progress and autonomy that's essential for a successful outcome for students. When in class, in the lecture theatre, we've got the materials and the open-ended collaborative projects to support those hands-on activities that deepen understanding. And most importantly, it's all ready to go. So resources that you can use out of the box, that you can customize for how you want to teach and the needs of your students. And to make it even easier, Black Opal will work with any learning management system that you might be using. So whether that's Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle, whatever it is, we support all the major learning management systems and learning standards. So you can deploy and monitor progress within Black Opal just like you would any of the other courses that you're using at your institution. And all of this available for less than the cost of a textbook. So we have educational pricing. And I've got Kyle's detail here. He's a dedicated member of our sales team with a huge amount of expertise rolling out Black Opal in educational institutions. So yeah, please get in touch with him to discuss how we can help you to deliver Black Opal to your students. Send him an email, scan the QR code, but he'll also be in touch after today's webinar. So we'll move on to the Q&A in a sec. So if you have any questions, please make sure to get them in. I can see there are a few there already. But Michael, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, are there any closing remarks that you'd like to make before we move on to the Q&A?
Yeah, I would just say when we were preparing for this, I actually wasn't aware of the education pricing, so I hadn't heard the recent thing, and it is cheaper than most of the textbooks that I bought when I was an undergrad years ago. So I just think it's both the price point as well. It's a good way to even augment a course where you may already have a textbook. It's at the right price where that's definitely possible. So yeah, there's just a lot of flexibility on how you could bring Black Opal into the classroom and add a bit more to what you're already doing, or really just lean in and try the flipped classroom altogether.
Well, thanks, Michael. All right, I can see I've got some questions here. So one here is, can I use Black Opal in recorded videos for class? So yeah, you certainly can. Sort of like we are today, like we have all of this course material here. So if you want to, you have an active license, you can then go into any of these activities that we've been demoing, open them up, use them to, live in front of the class or recording it yourself. That is all absolutely fine. There's actually more aspects of Black Opal that you can use in that sort of environment where, for example, we have a practice section here where you can actually use it in a more open-ended fashion where maybe you don't want to use the more focused activities. You can actually have this open-ended area where you can play around with a single qubit circuit or even a multi-qubit circuit and start to work with more complicated multi-qubit algorithms. You can pretty much create any sort of key fundamental algorithm within this practice area. And so if you want to use that to demonstrate something to your students on video, or even to set problems for your students within this sort of environment, then you can do that there as well.
And I do like the multi-qubit one is one of my favorites. I have actually genuinely used this sometimes to get some intuition when I've been doing research, because it's a really flexible part where you could just try a bunch of ideas of like how entanglement might be generated between different states and see what happens. So it's a great feature.
Cool. All right. Next question. What sort of jobs will be available for students in quantum technology? Great question. I think probably we both have an opinion on that one. I'll start with Michael, do you wanna jump
Yeah,
in?
no, I was going to say, like, there's tons of what you might expect type positions still continuing to be, like, the job market continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger in the quantum space. So going on to do a PhD in quantum research, you will definitely have a role to play. There will be many jobs available to you. I would also say that what we're seeing tons more jobs in ways that complement quantum. So say you've got a marketing background, bringing in an understanding of quantum to a degree, like a degree of technical understanding like you would get from Black Opal, that's a really important opportunity, I think, in the quantum workforce, where we need more and more people who have very, very different skills to PhDs, because making a business, make a successful business, is much more than the research component. But there's an awareness of quantum can really help, because there are some particular things that it helps to know when talking to other people in the field who are trying to get this technology to work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think one thing that I would like to just to add to Michael's answer there is that I didn't mention it specifically here, but as you work through Black Opal, at the end of each skill here, you have like a bit of a quiz that you then complete. And when you complete each of these skills, what you actually get is some credentials. So you actually get, at the end of every skill, you get a nice badge, which looks a little bit like this. And when you complete every single skill, you get this quantum professional certificate. At the moment, it has a nice International Year of Quantum badge included on there as well. And so actually, we've had quite a number of graduates from Black Opal get jobs throughout the quantum industry. But in particular, I would say there are lots of jobs within the quantum industry already that are sort of quantum adjacent. For example, within Q-CTRL, half of the company are not quantum physicists, like myself. I'm not a quantum physicist. I work in the product side of quantum. We also have marketing, sales, software engineers, HR. There's a huge number of quantum adjacent roles that are already available in the industry, but you nevertheless still need to understand how quantum computing works to a certain degree to be able to work successfully for a quantum organization. So it's not just that you need to aim to become quantum algorithm developer. There are other ways to get into the industry for those that are interested as well. Okay. Next question from Aslan. Okay. Asking whether it's possible to have things like an AI co-pilot companion and to actually look into some aspects like recycling CO2 into clean fuel, advanced compounds, novel proteins. So I think it's about AI here and also about applications of quantum computing. So I'll say from the AI perspective, that's actually something we're actively looking at adding into Black Opal right now. We do have the area here where you can ask pretty much any question. We're going to be augmenting that with an AI-driven companion, sort of learning assistant this year. So that will be something that we'll be adding as a feature. But also from the application side. So we do cover some of the specific applications of quantum computing. Even within the first couple of activities, we start to get into designing new materials, optimizing transport and logistics, some of the things that Michael mentioned earlier. And actually, we will have coming this month, the first in one of our dedicated new skills, which will be around using quantum computing for logistics and these transport network sort of problems. We'll dive really deeply into that. What is that sort of problem? How can you apply quantum to it? And what's possible in that sort of domain today and in the very near future, looking into that 2 to 4 years horizon that Michael mentioned at the start of the talk as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask you some questions, Mick, because there's a lot of feature interest. It's good to see people are very keen to see more and more. So we've got another question about, I guess, related to applications again, but what is the path in the app if you want to learn about quantum for AI and machine learning, and also in security? So I think that's referring to like cryptography and these other applications, which we are seeing opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, security in particular is one that we hear about a lot. And so actually, that's one reason why we've actually woven that cybersecurity approach throughout the course. So for example, again, just to show the introduction module, one reason that we included, even in the third topic of the first module, will quantum computers break the internet? So this is maybe a lighthearted introduction to quantum computers' impact on cybersecurity, but we get into how it can be used, and what its potential impact is on the sort of encryption methods that we use today, or in things like Bitcoin, for example. But even getting into some of the things that you can do today in terms of this, post-quantum cryptography, where there are, encryption methodologies available already that some institutions are starting to implement that can help to guard against some of these anticipated impacts for quantum computing on cybersecurity. But that's just the intro. We actually cover that throughout, even just to show one area in the more advanced part of the course where we get into, for example, you may have heard of Shor's algorithm. So, often touted as the thing that's going to break the type of encryption that's used in, throughout computing at the moment. We go into detail about what this is and maybe some of the reasons why this is something that's not possible to implement right now, but it's something that's coming down the pipeline in the future.
Yeah, and I think just on the quantum for AI, so I think that's something we actually talk about internally a lot as well. So I mean, I can't speak to when it is actually being thought about on the roadmap, but it's certainly something that we talk about internally a lot, about what we can say confidently. I would just say that the research in that area is still open. So there are lots of very specific technical results which are showing potential advantages, and there is like a lot of good reason to think there is going to be opportunities, but it is still at a more of a research level compared to that security work, which is very, very clear. The security work is thoroughly proven, thoroughly understood. And so I think Black Opal, we've also tried to make sure that everything in there is true and is going to be true for a very, very long time. But I think we've been thinking about how we can bring in the more recent developments. So another question around features, etc. So Corey asks, like, how often is the content in the course updated? And is there an estimated time frame for the availability of the QASM, the QASM sandbox, the language for programming quantum computers?
Yeah, great question. So as I mentioned, we'll be updating with an entirely new skill this month with this focus on quantum applications. And yeah, we'll be looking at enhancing that with even more quantum applications focused skills in the future. We anticipate updating this really regularly, but actually we update the course pretty much on a weekly basis in a smaller level as well, whether it's like updates to existing activities with new developments in the quantum space, or whether it is adding new topics to existing skills. It's pretty much updated constantly, just because we're aware that this is a fast-moving field we want to stay on top of. I did see one question there about LTI and LMS compatibility. And I'll say that, yes, we do support LTI. We support SCORM, LTI, XAPI, CMI5, all of the key LMS standards we support out of the box. So whatever LMS you use, that should be something, well, that is something that we support. And if you get in touch with Kyle here on the thing, we'd be happy to give you a demo of that, even to do like a sample integration, just to show you how that works. So just the last question here, is flipped learning the only way to deliver Black Opal? Is Black Opal suitable for other teaching methods? Certainly it is. So actually, Black Opal can be delivered in pretty much any sort of way that you would like. So whether this is purely self-driven, so something where it's just the learner working through themselves to complete the course, that's something that we support. Whether it's actually entirely delivered in person, we have organizations such as Digital Catapult in the UK that have delivered that in a multi-month in-person classroom setting alongside other quantum computing resources. That works really well in that sort of organization, that sort of situation as well. Tutorial environments, classroom environments. Yeah, essentially, however you would like to use it, we're not putting any limitations on that.
But yeah, and the key thing for me is always, it's really, really not so much about the philosophy of teaching, or because there's a lot of sometimes controversy even around these techniques. But the thing that the thing that I always was trying to remind myself, and that I would talk about with the other lecturers I was working with, it's that boosting of active learning. It's changing that ratio of time when someone's learning in the course and making sure you're maximizing the time that they're solving problems, that they're trying projects. And that's what I think is the biggest opportunity with Black Opal, is that you can add tons more interactivity and active learning to your course without having to do that lift yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, and I think with that, we'll start to close. We hope we've shown you what's possible with Black Opal and Flip Learning today. And if you haven't used Black Opal before, you can sign up, try it for free. Also get in touch with Kyle from our sales team to discuss using the full Black Opal for Educators product with your students. You also get a follow-up email from him with the details as well. We'll include things like the case studies that we've talked about, so you'll have some examples that you can look at in a bit more detail. So with that, thanks to our Chief Scientist, Michael Hush, for presenting with me today. And thank you all for joining our webinar. Be sure to stay tuned for the next one in August, which will be an introduction to the applications of quantum computing. So some of those questions that were entered today, we'll probably go into those in a lot more detail then. So until then, all the best on your and your students' learning journey with quantum computing. And I hope to see you in Black Opal soon. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.